I want to say thank you to the listeners who took the time out of their day for being here with me to listen to my stories, and hopefully it's going to have an impact on your own life. Now, the purpose of this podcast is to be able to give some type of hope or purpose to those who don't have. The reason why I decided to make a podcast is because as I got older, I realized that only so many people out of the billions of people we have on this planet actually had a meaningful life enough that if their stories is shared with the world, they could have a meaningful impact that could help the next person become a better version of themselves. My goal is to just go through some of the experience I've had from jail to playing professional football to working in a management position with psychologists to doing close protection with high profile clients and celebrities. My goal is to be able to put all my experience together and be able to share that with the world. So hopefully someone who feels like me when I was in some of the worst part of my life, for someone who feels like they're in the worst place they could possibly be in their life, that there's hope and opportunities for them. And with the right structure and will, you can achieve pretty much anything you want. And let's dive right into it. So, a bit of my background, currently 30 years old. I currently do close protection for high profile clients. From doing close protection, I've worked in nightclubs as a bouncer. I was director of transportation for a music festival. I had to overwatch transportation for entertainers such as Deadmau5, Rich the Kid, Nav, Don Tolliver, and so on. I have worked with psychologists in a management role for the past 3-4 years. I've decided to move on to my business and just focus on my security company. I have played professional football as well for the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 2017. And prior to that, I was incarcerated for 17 months. Now, I really want to get into the story of how I got arrested. But before that, I want to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background of where I was at the time of my arrest. Let's backtrack back to when I was 18 years old. I lived in Montreal. I just got done playing with my local football team. I just turned 18. I'm in Montreal. And at that time, I was a full-time gang member. At that time, I was vice president of an unknown gang. And some of the perks that I had from being a vice president was leadership, control, and armed. I was very well armed as an 18-year-old. And I would say fast forward about 6 months in, I had to go see one of my friends in a neighborhood that is completely Crip. For those who don't know what that means, between the Blood and the Crips, the Blood is the color red, of course, for the Bloods, and the Crips are the Blues. We have that in Montreal. The neighborhood where one of my friends lived was a neighborhood that was Crip. I had to take the subway to get there. When I arrive to my station, I'm wearing one of the warmest, if not the warmest, jacket in the world, which I believe is the Canada Goose Expedition. And I had it in a red color. The moment I arrive out of the subway, I have about between 6 and 7 guys approach me, tell me, "Take your jacket off, fam. Do you know where you are?" But what these guys didn't understand is that I knew where I was. And I knew that if I was in such neighborhood, I was prepared. Well, I have about 22 rounds in my pocket. This kind of gives you guys an idea of where I was at when I was 18. Now, my message was very clear to these guys. You can try me if you want to, but it's not going to end well for none of you. And I just put my hand in my pocket and sent them a visual message of, I'm armed. And if you guys attack me, I will have no choice but to defend myself. The situation did not escalate past that. They decided to just go their way. I went my way. But it did something to me that day. That day, I realized that I had the power of life and death. I felt like such power comes with great responsibilities, and that if the situation would have de-escalated that day, I wouldn't be here today to explain you guys my journey. What it did to me is that it made me realize that being part of gang and having all this power over life does not end well. It either ends up in jail or end up dead or on the run for the rest of your life. And somehow, I'm someone who's very intuitive, and somehow I kind of had a vision that if I did not choose a better path for myself, my life was not going to end well. Therefore, I took a leap of faith and I started doing researches on how I can play football in the United States while being 19 and over. And just to kind of make it briefly, I told my mom about my project. I told her I didn't want to be part of this life anymore. I want to play football. I have a purpose in life, and my purpose is to be a professional football player. And my mom, as tough financially as we were at the time, she said she's willing to take that sacrifice and take a loan and take me to Florida. I told her, Mom, just get me there. I will find a school. I will do the legwork. I will phone call the schools. I will talk to the coaches. And I did that for about 2-3 weeks. I had a few schools lined up for me, but I really didn't have anything going on for me. It was really the biggest leap of faith. And after spending 3 weeks in Florida, I basically ran out of opportunities. I ran out of schools, ran out of teams, and I was about to leave on a Monday to go back to Montreal, back to Canada. And on that Friday, I had an interview with this school, which was Palm Beach Lakes High School in West Palm Beach. I spoke briefly to the principal. He told me he played in the NFL. He would love to meet me. And, we go to the school. I go to school with my mom. And as I go to the school, I'm just a regular kid, right? Open the door for my mom, pull the seat back so she can sit down. I talk briefly to the principal, and he basically tells me that they don't think they'll be able to make something happen because I have to leave in 3 days. But they will be in contact with me. Now, fast forward, I would say an hour later, I get a phone call from the head coach telling me that he was watching me throughout my whole interaction with the principal, with staff, getting in, getting out, opening the door for my mom, and taking back the seat and helping her sit down. And he's like, "We need men like you around here," and he is going to do everything in his power to have me play on that team. Well, I want to give his flowers as I'm on a public platform. I want to say thank you to Coach Sneed for giving me a chance. I want to say thank you to Willie Sneed, the fourth, for also practicing and training with me while he was in the NFL at the time. He was playing for the Cleveland Browns with Johnny Manziel, which was a pretty big deal. They helped me become the man that I am today. That day, after my phone call with the coach, I was practicing with the team the next day. I was in the school the next week. Now, fast forward to, I believe at the time we're in May, around the end of the school year. Fast forward to October, third game of the season, I fractured my ankle. My only season in U.S., after going through all these training camps, left and right, from Alabama to Western Kentucky to Florida State, you name it. I traveled the whole summer with my school to these universities and do training camps. And to rectify, we did not go to Florida State, but we definitely went to Alabama. Roll Tide. After I fractured my ankle, I didn't actually believe that I fractured my ankle. I kept playing that game. It got worse. The next day, I flew back home to go get some treatments and x-rays and figure out what was wrong with my foot. I found out it was fractured. I found out that my season was pretty much over. I wouldn't be able to walk for 3 months, and I would have to relearn how to walk after 3 months. I go back to the border to fly back to finish my school year because I'm like, football is over, but, I'm still going to support my team. I'm still going to be on the sideline. I'm still going to help the guys with the playbook. I'm still going to be a member of this organization and support my team in any possible way. You're injured, you're still part of the team. I was declined at the border to go to U.S. because I didn't have a visa to be in the United States. Mind you, I was there since May. I was in high school. I had 2 transcripts from the previous year, that year. I visited about 10 universities, did about 15 training camps, from training camp at Cincinnati University or the Nike camp in Miami. I was pretty much as active in football as you possibly could be. I know a lot of coaches remember me during those days because I was 6 foot Canadian and I ran a 4.44, 4.5. So that was pretty rare at the time, and I was around 200 pounds. Why this is so relevant is because after I got denied at the border, I was now back in Canada without being able to go back to school. Within those 3 months, I decided to go on a date with a woman who, while I was playing football in Florida, she was reaching out to me, and then I'm back in the country now. I'm available. And I was single at the time. We decided to go to a bar. But mind you, I'm within my 2 months that I'm not supposed to walk. I'm limping. I left my crutches in the car. As we approach the bar, the lady that I'm with realizes her ex is there and he's drunk. I also recognize a few people in that group. So as we walk inside the bar, and I'm starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable because I'm like, these guys are there, your ex is outside, I'm not sure what might happen. So I decide to leave. She makes it outside before me as I'm leaving and saying bye to the owner. As I walk outside, this is all I'm seeing. Ex grabs her and throws her on a vehicle and starts, try to punch her and stuff. And I I'm trying to get to him as I'm limping. As I told him to stop, dude, just stop what you're doing. He turned around, hit me, then pulled out a knife, tried to stab me. We fought for the knife. He ended up getting stabbed. There was no cameras. There's some witnesses. There was independent witnesses. And a long story short, the story was that he attacked me. Is what he told the cops. He attacked me and I got a knife out. And apparently I chased him and stabbed him. Apparently. Our independent witness, which is someone I don't know, they don't know, someone who was in the parking lot, saw a black male with a red Canada Goose getting jumped by 3 Latin-looking person, or Latinos, I don't know how you put it together. After the event, I was living at a friend's house and did not know the cops was looking for me until I got arrested. It was pretty much straight out of a movie. The person who ratted me out, which was a close friend of mine, said that myself was going to rob an armored vehicle with motorcycles and assault rifles and Jeep Trackhawks, and it was like a scene out of a movie. But all the charges would drop from a couple days later, but initially they were all added on top of all my previous charges. They denied my bail because they believed that I was a flight risk because I was going to school 4 months ago in Florida. Now, without doing any type of verification, without calling the border, this was their conclusion. They have decided that me, Jonathan, who at the time was 21, I don't have a criminal record as an adult, first time being arrested, I'm denied bail because I'm a flight risk that might go to United States of America and run from the law. And if you guys remember from me talking a couple minutes ago, I just mentioned that I got denied entry in United States because I didn't have a visa. Therefore, it was impossible, literally impossible, for me to cross the border from Canada to the US. Yet, this was the main ground, the main reason for me to be denied bail. And for that reason, I was left incarcerated for 17 months. Can you just imagine for a second a kid who decided to change his life, go play football, gets himself in a self-defense conflict between 2 parties, he say, she say. I have to spend 17 months in the worst possible place that mankind has created to put mankind. I was there. The reason why it was so tough was because I actually had no clue when I was going to be released from prison. They didn't give me a date. I didn't have a sentence until 15 months in. So for 15 months, I'm incarcerated in the system with the worst possible criminal of my city because I defended myself, because they think I'm flight risk. So during those 17 months, I had so many challenges. Not knowing when you're getting out of jail is defeating. It's defeating because you are put in a cage where they would not even put a dog. Yet, because you have breaking one of the millions of rules that we have created for you to make your life harder, we will put you in a cage with the baddest and the worst dogs there is in society. And when you get out of there, if you get out of there, of course, we want you to reform yourself. We want you to be better than when you got in. Please make it make sense. Not only I was put in the maximum unit with people that were there for murder, attempt murder, kidnapping, the most violent crimes. That was the unit I was in. But there, as a kid, among grown men. And it didn't take long for me to make my mark. It took about, I think, a week. I fought the biggest and baddest mother effer in the unit. And it was over something very dumb. You know, it's a lesson that I was taught very early in my time incarcerated, that violence wins, period. Whoever's the most violent will most likely be in a position of leadership. Because in prison, as much as they showcase there's guards, there's walls, there's nurses, you know, there's a warden, there actually is no structure. They put you in a cage, they close the cage and they say, here's food. Give us the food back. Here's more food. Give us the food back. It's time to sleep. It's time to wake up. Oh, we're just going to walk around and make sure y'all still alive. But that's about it. Their job of these correctional officers is to make sure you're alive. Because as long as you are alive while incarcerated, they make all this money. But we're going to get into that, you know, a bit later. Now, some of the toughest things I had to deal with, like I said, was I had a fight. I had a fight with, you know, big, strong, tall Russian guy who woke up every morning. He ran around the range, and it was really my fault. I decided to smoke some cannabis, and it was very strong, and I lost my headphones. After I lost my headphones, I started accusing people of taking my shit. And I told someone that my headphones are gone. I'm just going to take whoever else's headphone. I did. I took someone's headphones from their table and just was like, yeah, that's mine now. And if somebody got a problem about it, they could say something about it. At that time, when I made that decision, I had not personally experienced any type of violence in jail. To me, it was like, why is everyone so quiet? Why is everyone so chill here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they make jail seem like it's so dangerous. And, you know, if you drop the soap, you might get in trouble. And, you know, people are getting stabbed every day. Well, I sure found out that day. Whoever's headphones I took, his friend said, this black guy over there took it. And I responded with, oh, so you were a snitch, huh? He said, oh, I'm a snitch. Okay. Let me talk to you in the cell real quick. And I'm just like, well, shit, all right. What's so interesting that this guy's going to tell me that he needs to be, you know, one-on-one with me in the cell, you know? But I was very naive that day. I got into the cell, and he said, you called me a snitch. I'm like, yes, I did. And he headbutted me so hard that I literally snapped out of myself and became somebody else. And I responded with so many punches and elbows and knees. He had to tell me stop. Like he said, like literally stop. Like stop. I'm good. He was very bloody. There's blood all over my cell. And as I'm getting out of my cell, because we're in my cell, I see about 4 faces stacked in the glass door of my cell. Basically, higher ups in the range were looking at the fight to see how I was going to hold up. The next day, they made me president of all immigrants. Black, yellow, green. If you're not white, You basically are under my authority. That day, I understood the structure of jail. I didn't get it until that day. So I understood there was a structure. I understood there was a structure among inmates. I understood that there was a committee. In most units, there's a committee. There's a president. There's a vice president. Their job is to make sure that inmates don't do riots. The inmates don't make alcohol because alcohol makes people violent. Found that out real quick in jail. And that we live somewhat in peace and coexist somewhat with some form of peace with the correctional officers. That's mainly it. Everything else, in my opinion, is extracurriculum. So as a president, you do have a few duties, but it's mainly the trafficking and the violence and the fights and all the stuff happening that you pretty much have to oversee and make sure that it stays controlled. But that's mainly the job of the president. From there on, my journey changed from, time sucks, I'm not doing anything, to I'm waking up and, I got meetings. I have to meet with my committee. I have to make sure everything runs smooth. I have to make sure that if there's any type of trafficking happening in the unit, well, the traffic is shared fairly between the ethnicities. So if the whites have drugs, well, they need to give the blacks drugs so we don't rob them, and vice versa. I've learned a lot of those rules that they don't talk about, in the news, about, in movies. They make it seem like jail is just this dangerous hellhole where you go there, you're dead, you're getting stabbed, you're going to drop the soap, and so on. So that was kind of the main challenges, was not knowing when I was going to get out, having to deal with all the stuff I had to deal with, from being a president. Wanting freedom. Wanting freedom was just so important to me at that point that everything else didn't matter. How did I keep my sanity in jail was fairly simple, but it had a lot to do with socialization. I realized a lot that over time, one of the cons of being incarcerated, because there are pros about being incarcerated, from learning life lesson, boundaries, rules, respect authority. One of the cons was that you could be transferred any day of the week, but also they can add anyone to your unit any day of the week. You're also isolated, and you don't get to see, or have any type of relationship because, you're incarcerated, right? It's very tough on your relationships outside. It's very tough on your family if you're someone who's very close with your parents. It's very tough on your partner if you're in a relationship, like have a girlfriend, wife, kids. It's very tough on the kids. That's the hardest part of being in prison. Everything else could be managed because leave humans for a certain period of time in a certain environment, they're literally just going to adapt, get comfortable in that bad environment. Like I was saying, one of the few ways that I kept my sanity was working out. I worked out almost every day, if not twice a day, to the point where they would call me the football player. That was my nickname in jail. I made football programs. Not football programs, but I made gym programs for inmates. I made gym programs for some of the COs because I spent that much time in the gym. And because everybody called me the football player, my charges were related to self-defense. The COs didn't really look at me as the guy who robbed the bank. You know what I mean? Or the guy who committed murder. It was more like, man, this kid defended himself. The law sucks, but he's here. And, if we need anything from the world of fitness, we can ask him. Which they did. And I, respected that entirely. I also spent a lot of time reading. I had a lot of books on behavior, psychology, anything from Robert Greene, from 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction. And I spent a lot of time on the phone. I spent some days 3 hours, 4 hours on the phone. I believe that's what kept me sane. As my body was in jail, my brain was outside. I was able to communicate with my friends. I was able to be on social media. All that through the phone, of course. Keep people updated and keep myself updated of what's going on in the outside world. A lot of people don't realize it. It's very easy to be isolated from the world while being incarcerated. You get the news through the phone, through newspaper, or through TV. If all of these three things are disconnected, or not working, or the jail is on shutdown for whatever reason, you are literally disconnected from the world. You have no clue what's going on. That was very tough because they only allow certain books. In a unit, let's say I'm someone who likes to spend time on the phone, there's might be 5 phones, 6 phones for 60 inmates, 65 inmates. And the unit that had the most phone, or I believe they had 10 phones, there was 195 inmates. So sometimes calling was very difficult. It was very difficult to be able to get an opportunity to be able to be on the phone with your loved ones. And it was the way for me to keep my sanity was through the phone. 1,000,000%. Because I could be on the phone, listen to music, listen to the news, listen to a video, I could listen to a whole movie while on the phone. Just tell my friend, bro, just play me this movie that just came out. Right? So I want to say thank you to Brandon, by the way. I want to give him his flowers. Hopefully it goes public very soon. Because he was the person that I was on the phone with every day. I was incarcerated. He would call people for me. He would stay on the phone for me. And sometimes it would be 5 hours, 6 hours straight. He would stay on the phone and yeah. Thank you, Brandon Gage. Thank you. Jail had pros. It was not all bad days, besides the fact that it was mostly bad days. But there was a certain brotherhood that was built from being around certain inmates. I got transferred at some point in a range that was Hells Angels affiliated. And it's almost like I went from the jungle to the corporate world overnight. Because I went from an environment where violence is king. Somebody tries you, you gotta run a fade. You gotta throw hands. To an environment where guys don't fight. Guys don't even yell at each other. Guys don't insult each other. Guys are just so laid back. They just want to work out, talk to their wives, and that's it. Do their time. I've learned a lot about being around older men who have been in the organized crime life for long periods of time. I've learned so much about being around these guys, from decisions to make, friends to pick, positions to put yourself in, and sacrifices to make. Because some of these guys, I did time, when I was in that range, I believe I had some mobsters with me. I started training this mobster who was my roommate. I made him lose around 35, 40 pounds. And, he was explaining to me a lot about, the life, the mob life, and how it's just such a brotherhood that is so tight. It's a family that is so tight for the past, 50, 60, 70 years that it is very tough to be a regular schmegular guy and not want to participate or be part of something that is so big, right? It's like having this badge on you saying like, bro, I'm a mobster. You know what I had to do to be a mobster? I make one phone call and your day is horrible. Your day is done. I understood the pride behind that. And it was sad for me to see how organized, how successful the mobsters and the bikers were when my people are shooting at each other, fighting each other over the smallest things, over the dumbest things, right? I grew up in a neighborhood that had Crips and Bloods. Well, when I was 15, I made my own gang with Crips and Bloods because I didn't understand why our own people would fight each other over a color. To me, it just didn't make sense. You telling me that I'm going to kill my own cousin because he's wearing blue today? It just didn't make sense to me, right? So that followed me throughout my life and throughout, jail and incarceration, where it was very easy for me to be around such organized leaders in, the organized crime industry. Because I'm not a guy who talks a lot. I like to learn. I'm very respectful. Like I said, I know my position. I knew that at the time, I was the athlete in the range or the unit. I was the guy who worked out, So I would work out with the guys. I would start helping them, get their body slowly back to normal, right? And I made some contacts, made some friends. It was a great experience for that sense, because if it wasn't for prison, I would not meet these kind of people. You would not have these kinds of conversations because they don't have to. They don't have to mingle with a guy like me. They don't have to talk to a guy like me because their organization is just so set in stone. It's just so successful. Everyone has their position. Everyone respects their position. Everybody respects the authority. No one is challenging their superiors. No one is challenging the system. And that, to me, coming from a background of football player, I was just so amazed by that. Because, us black folks, where I came from, we did not know of such organization. It was like a myth almost. So finally, after 17 months of being incarcerated, I'm found guilty after, spending a lot of time in trial, after having a detective trying to intimidate my witness, which I don't know if that was normal, but it definitely happened. I spent 2 months sentence before 3 Supreme Court judges decided to suspend my sentence. Once they suspended my sentence, I got released from prison immediately. And I was done with the province. I was done with this, the city. A few other situations happened afterwards that made me just want to leave the city completely. How did I leave the city and where did I go? Well, everything changed for me when one day I get a video call on Snapchat. Shout out to Snapchat. I get a video call from one of my buddies. And when you're picking up the phone from one of your friends, you're like, bro, what's up? Like, foolish, right? Like, not picking up the phone like you're talking to your boss. Well, the head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, which is a professional football team in the Canadian Football League, asked about me because one of his recruiters saw me playing football in West Palm Beach a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. He asked about me and asked where was I now? And somehow one of the players on the team was like, well, I know this guy. He was playing in Florida and brought me and 4 of my other teammates to come play football with him in Florida. And the coach asked him if he had any ways to reach me. He said, yeah, I have a Snapchat. Well, tell you this, Chris Jones, the head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who is now believed the assistant defensive coordinator with Bill Belichick, who was the head coach of the Patriots, and some college team in the U.S. now. Coach Jones decided that he was not going to call me in no traditional phone call and send me no emails. He was going to call me on Snapchat and let me know what's up right away. Ask me if I was healthy. Ask me if I still wanted to play football. And I just said yes, yes, yes to all the questions. It was a lie. I was not healthy. But I wanted to play football. I knew that. I just haven't played football in so long, right? I've just been, workouts in jail, but not really football workouts. There's no grass in jail. It's gravel and metal everywhere. Now, they flew me out to Saskatchewan about 2 weeks later. I'm thinking that, I've just made the team somehow. I had no clue at the time how a professional organization works in the world of sports. My first day I get there, they give me a place to stay. I'm like, this is great. They tell me where the stadium is. They give me a locker. Like, man, this is amazing. I had no clue that exact day that I arrived, I would have to actually play football. I'm not going to lie to you. I had no clue. Well, that day, they made me do one-on-ones as a receiver and a running back against DBs that were playing on the team, that are trying to make the team, that have been playing on the team in the NFL, that were playing maybe in the NFL prior. Now they're playing here. College players, current CFL players. I had to compete against all of that in a one day. And somehow I dominated. I remember. I totally dominated that day. It's not that I had nothing else, to give, but it was more like I have everything to prove. Like there's nothing else to me but this. This is where I am. I'm a football player. So the next day made me realize the difference between a professional athlete and just a regular person. I was exhausted. I was tired. My body could not move as the first day. And I pulled my hamstring. Pulled my hamstring on the second day. I was out for 3 months. And the coaches told me, we're going to give you a place to stay. You're going to have to get yourself ready for the season. We're in September, maybe October, I believe, at the time. The season starts in August. We're going to give you a place to stay, but you're going to have to feed yourself. You're going to have to get yourself to practice. And you're going to have to work on this leg of yours and this hamstring that you pulled. Challenge accepted. I could tell you guys, this was one of the toughest time of my life. And I'm going to tell y'all why it was so tough. It was tough because to the world, I became a professional athlete. On social media, right? I have my own locker. I'm with the players. I'm at the stadium. I had access to all these resources. But financially, it was a struggle. And I tried my best to change my financial situation by applying to so many jobs. But due to still being in court of appeal, I still had aggravated assault attached to my name. So when the jobs did their interviews, they can see that I have a criminal record and that I'm a criminal on paper. Now, because I'm a criminal on paper, it don't matter if I'm a professional football player. We can't hire a criminal to work for us. So guess what? I never got a job during the off season. I was living off of my mother sending me $75, $50 to $75 a week for food. And I was living off my partner at the time. You know, she was helping me from going to practice, going to stadium, going to wherever I needed to be. And I would say shout out to my partner at the time and my mom for life. So I had to budget myself on eating lots of ground beef, lots of pastas, lots of eggs every week. Every week. Until I made the team. So my journey to the league, nobody actually knows it. Nobody actually understands the struggle it took me to make it to training camp. Not only I didn't have enough money to actually fully fuel myself, I didn't have a car. I didn't have the finances to own my own place. And there was only so many football players that played on the team that actually lived in Regina, the city that I was in. And those players that lived in Regina, those professional athletes that lived in the city, they had their own lives. They have wives, they have houses, they have cars, they got their own gym, they got their own sponsors. Like, life is good for them. They're not going to want to mingle with me, Jonathan, who just got out of prison. That's the last thing they want to, mingle with. So most players didn't really hang out with me. Because I had the jail mentality, it was like, yeah, we got brotherhood, but try me and I'll fuck you up. Disrespect me and we'll squabble. Because in jail, any situation with another man, if we're not happy about how the situation or the conflict of where it's heading, the tone, the aggressiveness, anything related to that conflict, we're going to go in a cell and squabble up. The only thing is, I'm winning that squabble every single time. Am I proud of having all these fights in jail? No. But you don't have a choice. It's either you get walked on or you have to walk on someone else. Now, was I a bully? No. I never believed in bullying. I always believe in brotherhood and growth and team effort. Bullies are people that have big egos, and they need to define their egos with people that are smaller than them, by crushing them. And they usually do it in front of others. So the reaction of witnesses actually, they feed off of that, Now, going back to football, the budget I had was insane. Not only I had to go to my regular football practice at least once a day, but I would also go to a gym. A gym decided to give me the keys to their location, and I was allowed to go to the gym whenever I want, past 9 o'clock. I would go to the gym at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, as long as my partner was there to take me, or, if maybe I had a teammate around to take me there. And I had to be consistent, from going to do track and fields once a week, going to do hydrotherapy to rebuild strength in my lower back and my quads and my hamstring, going to football practice with all the big guys. Well, guess what? The coach decided to add another challenge to it. He tells me that because I didn't play university or college, he wants me to develop my body by playing on the junior team as well. At the time, I'm not thinking too much of it because I just want to play football. This is all I have. This is all I am. I'm a football player. This is who I am. It was so hard to play for two teams at the same time. Two different playbooks, two different coaches, two different coaching styles. On the professional team, I'm playing running back, but I'm also playing defensive back. On the junior team, I'm playing running back, I'm playing returner, I'm playing third string quarterback, I'm playing receiver, and wherever the coach felt like he could just put me there because I would just say yes. I would not put myself in a situation to make my junior coach unhappy because I know that the junior coach and the head coach of the professional team are buddies. And if a problem happens in one field, there's going to be a consequence on the other field. That's all I knew from playing on the junior team. Now, after 7 months, 8 months of just grinding, finding myself, putting, the party life to the side, I was able to make it to training camp, which was a month long, 2 practice a day, about 2 hours per practice, plus an hour of film every day, mandatory ice tub and hot tub every day. I went from running back number 5 on the team to running back number 2 by the second week because there was a lot of injuries. They dropped me back down to running back number 4, I believe, after the training camp was done. But it was very, very tough. From working out every day, I had to create my own structure of healing myself. From waking up early, doing yoga, applying magnesium oil on my muscles that were tight, rolling with the foam roller. I had a medicinal ball that I would use to move around my joints and stuff. To hydration, nutrition. I was trying to eat as much as possible during training camp and just be very disciplined. The hardest part for me was definitely the playbook because I went from a high school playbook to a professional football playbook. And everybody who played high school, college, NFL, or CFL know that the moment you switch to professional, that playbook is thick. There's an options for every play, there's an audible for every play, there's a silent count for every play, and there's a signal for every play in case the stadium is too loud. That was very tough. That was definitely the toughest part for me of playing football was that. Also, when I got my salary, my first check, when I got my first check, it was not what I was promised. It was very low. It was so low that I wouldn't be able to afford me a place to live, even if I was to save that money. And I didn't have enough money to have a vehicle or fully feed myself like I should eat as a professional athlete playing at a high level. That's how low my salary was. I almost thought about quitting the team the second day after I got paid because I was so upset. I was so upset that I've been training hard for 8-9 months here, budgeting, sacrificing, no life, not going out, to being lied to. And it's not really that I was lied to, is I was not told the truth about the budget and the position that I was in. They decided to hire me as a practice roster player. There was a certain budget related to that. I was just not informed. And I would have loved to be informed and kind of be mentally prepared for, the salary cut. That was definitely the toughest time of playing on the team. Was I'm here, I'm working 4 or 5 times harder than everybody else, yet my salary is not enough for me to go out and have steak with my partner. Or I can't take out my linemen's or my O-lines to eat. Be like, guys, bro, it's been a crazy week. I had a great game last week, bro. Let me treat y'all to something because y'all play a position that it's all about giving back to the next man next to you. I couldn't do that. So that was very tough for me financially. As much as I love the brotherhood, as much as I love the experience I've had playing on that team, I believe that year we got a brand new $350 million stadium. It was an absolutely electrifying experience. Playing in the field, the signing day with the fans, it's just so unreal. Because the fans in Saskatchewan love the players so much, and it's like a community sport where once there's a game or once there's an event related to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the city will show out. So one thing's for sure, Saskatchewan Roughriders has some of the best fans in all of sports, period. Things I would have loved to improve, during my stint, things I would have loved to improve during my time as a football player was just having more of a social life, making friends, learning more about players and their stories. I've played with great players. I've played with players that I see play on TV, such as Vince Young. I remember that year when I was playing, Vince Young tried to do a comeback. It was, like, oh my God, dude, I used to play with you on Madden. I used to play with you on NCAA. You're right next to me. That was very unreal or surreal. But yet, when it was time to play, like he's my quarterback. He's third string or fourth string. I'm fourth string. So I've learned to separate the business from friendship. But me compared to all these other players there, I was not a social media guy. I wasn't verified on social media. My name did not ring any bells. But I just came out of jail. That alone should have given me the respect that I deserved. But you're not in an environment where people just give you respect. You're in an environment where you have to earn it. Right? They don't care if you were, big college superstar. You're around grown-ass men. And you need to act accordingly. You need to train as hard as us, if not harder. You need to compete with us, if not more. And you need to bring something to the table that is not just sport related. You have to do something for us, especially if you're a rookie. Make our life easier, right? As we accept you in our unit. So I've learned a lot of great things from playing around these men. Some of these guys are, my friends for life. And, it was an overall experience that I would go through again, but I would document it. It's an experience that I would go through again just because, it felt like I had a purpose in life. It felt like as I left jail and I had no clue what I was going to do for myself, I got a direction. That direction was football. Therefore, I put all my energy into training. I put all my energy into going to the gym, studying my playbook. Everything was related to the sport. What it made me realize as I moved forward throughout life I started working in the field of psychology with psychologists, doing close protection. Is we as people need to have goals. We need to have objectives. We need to have a path. What this experience has brought to me is that even in the worst possible place that you could imagine you are right now, which is either jail or worse than jail, you're in the hole in jail, there is an opportunity for you to put all the stuff you've lived, combine it, and create some form of success with it. Now, that success might not look like what you've envisioned. You might not become that rapper. That career of professional athlete might not be what's waiting for you outside of these bars. But your life is not over. To go from being in the hole, with rats and mices on a cold bunk bed with a camera looking at me 24 hours a day, while also being 23 hours in my cell and having only 1 hour to either take a shower or call my loved ones. I went from that to being playing in a $350 million stadium, 6 months later, with people asking me for autographs. People knew my name. People are giving me free stuff. People want to touch me because I play on this team, and of course we're talking, hugs and stuff. Felt unreal. It felt like after all this pain I just experienced from being incarcerated, not knowing when I'm coming out, and the multitude of injustice that I have faced myself from the Canadian justice system, or American justice system, to be honest, it felt like God gave me another purpose. God gave me a new path. But when I was in jail, I didn't see that. I didn't believe it because I can't see past the bars. I can't see past the barbed wire. So I want you to know, you listener who is still here right now, I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, out of your night, out of your life to immerse yourself in a glimpse of my life. And I hope that you know that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever financial situation, justice situation, domestic situation, physical situation that you're in right now, there is more for you to accomplish in this world. You think your life is over because they've sent you to jail for 20 years, 25 years? No, sir, your life is not over. You can use your years of jail, prior to jail, the reason why you got incarcerated, to create a memoir for people that live the life that you live to know that this is not it. This is not the life they want to live. But it only took you 10 or 15 years of being incarcerated for you to switch that switch and be like, this is not it. I can't believe I have absorbed all this information that told me violence was the way out. The gangster life was the way of success. Selling drugs is going to get me that $1 million. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. The universe, God, has created a path for everyone on this earth. But it is your job to have the will to accept that path and then fulfill it. And it might not be what you hoped it to be. Someone out there in this world is cutting grass. They became a millionaire off of cutting grass. You really think they woke up when they were 10 years old and told the world, I'm going to cut grass and become a multimillionaire cutting grass? No. But guess what? Now they're multimillionaire. Now they have an LLC. Now they're making millions of dollars in revenue every year. Now they can hire people and give those people opportunities. Because you see, one thing I've learned about being in a position of power or having a business is that I am not just a user anymore. I'm not just a consumer anymore. I'm an employer. I'm giving opportunities back to people to feed their families, create a lifestyle, reach their goal, and get them closer to their path. So, I believe that the universe has put me here on this earth to share my experiences, to share what I have been through. So if you guys are lost, or if you guys are in a dark tunnel, I really hope that you can utilize me, my information, my life, to put a tiny, tiny, tiny light in that tunnel, so at least you know in what direction you're going. That is going to be my purpose in life. I want to say thank you again, like I said, to everyone who tuned in today. This is my third or fourth time recording this episode. I initially recorded it about a year and a half ago. A lot of things have happened during that time. Going on tour, working with psychologists, and really understanding what my purpose is on this planet. And I believe I have found it. Thank you again for being here. I know I'm saying thank you like a million times. I'm just so grateful for people who have spent this much time listening to me, a person they have never met, to give them inspiration to become the best version of themselves. Thank you. Stay tuned for the next episodes. We're going to go over close protection. We're going to go over psychology. We're going to go over a combination of all those things and how we can utilize my experiences in life to make you better. On that note, have a good rest of your night and stay safe.